Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Thomas Marbella, a freelance app developer with more than 15 years of experience, founder and CEO at OneCode, and mentor for freelance developers and entrepreneurs. So, welcome, Thomas.
Hi, Yuri. Nice to meet you.
I always start with the easiest question. For you, what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
I think at the moment, the most challenging part is actually to find projects, having good project, good rates, and good clients and good relationships.
We were talking about it on Freelance Thrive podcast. Still, how do you deal with it personally? What is your one go-to step?
I think one go-to step is to actually build genuine relationships with other people, with potential clients. I think LinkedIn makes it so easy to actually reach out to persons. And we also talked about that in a different podcast. It's always important to actually give value. And it sounds a little bit esoteric, spiritual, give value to the universe and the universe will give back. But still, it is like that. If you help 10 different people, at least 5, 6, 7, 8 will come back to you even after years. So having strong relationships, a real good network, not like I know 100 people network, good network, makes the difference and makes your life easier.
What is your process of finding those people? For example, you're joining LinkedIn. You don't know who you are going to text. You have only keywords: CTO, team lead, engineer. And you have understanding who you want to reach out, but you don't know this person exactly. Like, what's next?
I think usually I would just say I start a search with these keywords and find a couple of CTOs, and I also need to know, for example, what kind of company size they're in. So it makes a difference if you have a CTO from, for example, Porsche, you may never reach them, or a CTO from a startup, which is still touchable, let's say. And I write them a message and say, hey, this is me. I may like your product, analyze it before, and try to give them some sort of value. Be not salesy at all because people hate to be sold, and reach out to a couple. It's still a numbers game. So if you write to 50 or 100 persons, and that's possible in an hour or two, let's say 30% will actually reply. Out of these 30 replies, you may have like 10 conversations or so. And if you're good, you have like 2 or 3 video calls out of 10 conversations and may actually get a close into these video calls.
Do you send a general message like, hey, I know you're a CTO, I like your company, let's connect?
It
Or do you
depends.
really analyze their company, their LinkedIn profile? Like, what is your approach?
I think it depends. So both can work. You can go en masse and say semi-personalized just with a name, say you know they have an app, you know they're currently looking for a developer. For example, you can scrape all the LinkedIn job offers, and if somebody's, for example, looking for a permanent Android developer, they may have a need for additional capacity. So I text them and say, hey, I know you're looking for a permanent. I'm not a permanent, I'm a freelancer, but let's be honest, you may be looking for this role for 3, 4, even 6 months. Let me help you in between to bridge that time. That's one thing. And I think the second thing can also be that if you like an app or if you see their app, software, whatever, that you actually take some minutes, analyze it, find a bug, find a UX flaw or whatever, and text them and say, hey, I like your app, but this could be improved. To be honest, in 90% of the times, they already know about it. They do have a backlog. They're not stupid. But still, you're not one out of many on LinkedIn. Because, I mean, I get like 20, 30 messages on LinkedIn saying, yeah, I'm a developer. I'm looking for a project. It's like, yeah, nice. Everybody does. But if there's someone saying, hey, I saw your talk on this, or I saw a YouTube video, let's talk about it. It's like, he's genuinely interested in me. And I will give him a chance to have a video call of 20 minutes, whatever, and see if we can help each other because he's not too salesy, not too pushy in the first place.
That's exactly what I'm asking, because there is qualitative and quantitative
Yes.
approaches, and both works. Because qualitative, you spend more time kind of preparing who to message, and then exactly you do this human touch, and it's much more. So I would say that CTR is better in this case. So and in other words, you can also scrape like 10,000s of jobs, and you can send those people the generic message, and most likely you'll do it automatically with some of the tools, and
Yes.
you may have the same result. So I'm curious, for you personally, what approach works better?
I think what works better is the more time consuming, very specific approach. For example, I like watches. I like the Chrono 24 app. And I wrote them a message and said, hey, it's very nice you're doing cross-platform. And they answered me, said, hey, let's have a call. So we had a call. And they were like, why do you think we have cross-platform? It's like, it's not looking like a native app. And we had a very hard discussion for like half an hour. And later on, they were like, we need somebody like you in our team. It's like, yeah, you can hire me for like 150 an hour. No, we don't have a budget for that. It's like, yeah, but you're the CTO. Yeah, that's right. So they made that happen. And if you're generally interested in someone, and it's important, if you can actually provide value, you're good to go. I have the same for someone in my course. He says, if you have an e-commerce app or whatever, I help you to get more revenue and you give me half of that. And people are like, hey, I would be stupid not to take that offer because it's a win-win situation. I know many developers out there only think in their code and stack it. That's fine. But try to think of a win-win situation, the actual value you can provide. Another example, I was offered a job for, I don't know, 50 grand a month for a tech due diligence. And I was like, that's a lot of money. And they were like, yeah, but if everything goes well, you save us up to a quarter or half a million euros. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. So if you have a big leverage and if you have somebody that saves someone else money, you can charge a lot more money. That's the point.
And it sounds a little bit like a fairy tale that they tell you this, because usually freelancers have to tell
I
clients
know.
how much, why the rates are this because
Yes.
of how they save. And if they tell you, oh my God, it's amazing. What is the most time consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer, except for work itself?
Yeah, I think acquiring new projects. So I think 2 years ago, this was also a big pain of mine. We relied for like half of the projects on recruiters, and there was a big and forth, and they were also like draining the hourly rates and negotiations, and it took time, and then they declined the offer, reject you, whatever. This was really a pain. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that shit anymore. So it was more about, okay, how do I get rid of all the recruiters? Don't get me wrong, they're important, they're doing sales, yes, but I said I want to do this on my own. I really had to learn it to actually get that going. It's a process. The good thing as a normal freelancer is you only need 1 or 2 projects. So currently at OneCode, we have 30 projects going on. So if I can find 30 projects for 30 people, you as a freelancer can find 1 or 2. It's not that hard. It's work, but it's not that hard. And it also is a little bit about market share. I talked to 3 different CTOs alone this month, and they were telling me their pains and problems. And I was like, I can easily fix that for you. But they told me, yes, but these pains are not so urgent that they get the money from the CFO. So I was like, okay, A, let's keep in touch, and B, let's find a pain point that you actually have to fix to pay money for. Life hack, next year's the Accessibility Act 2025. People will need to fix their software and apps that are consumer facing for accessibility. It's a huge market. And if you go
Hmm.
there and say, I can make that happen for you, they're gonna pay
Yeah.
you a lot of money because they need to. That's their pain. It's urgent and they have to do by law.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little bit of random question. I just saw this book, C++.
Yeah.
What was the last time that you take it out from shelf?
The last book I take out from shelf.
I mean the C++ book. When was the
Uh,
last time that you took it off from shelf?
uh, Honest answer, I never read it. It's just there. I think I bought it 10 years ago during my studies. Was just like, I mean, for the background, it's nice.
I have pretty much the same book. That's why I'm asking, and
Yeah.
I didn't read it too. So just out of curiosity, as a freelancer, what is the most nerve-wracking thing you must deal with?
What I also had was, for example, when I applied for a project back then via recruiter or whatever, and you know your current project ends in a week. So yes, having 1 week of spare time in between is fine, but there were parts, oh my God, where the project was postponed for a month or 2 or even 3. And in this spare time, it's not like you can go on vacation. You're chilled. You're not. And what was also nerve-wracking was like the time, like week by week by week. We had that, for example, half a year ago with Adidas and Puma, big project, and I was already getting 4 developers for the whole project. And after 3 months, week by week, they said, ah, no, we put it on ice and freeze it and don't do it. I was like, guys, this this is insane. So just why? I think this is part of the game. What is also important is many non-freelancers always think freelancing is this fairy tale, make a shitload of money, easy work, work remotely. it can be like this, but nobody's talking about the downside of freelancing sucks. So it's sometimes hard, and sometimes you have this where you know you're in a pipeline for a project, things are not working out, and everything just sucks. That's part of a game. And at the very end, even though you make 100 euro an hour, you may not end up making 80, 90K a year possible. Yeah.
It's one thing that I always heard about not having projects, but you are the first, I had, I don't know, like near 100 conversation, but you are the first person who told me about having a project on hold.
Yeah.
So you is this situation when you kind of have project and you don't
Yeah.
have project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what to do as a freelancer in this situation?
Um, to be honest, either you say, dear client, screw it. I'm looking for another project in the meantime. And if you're finally ready, we're gonna see if things work out, if I switch the project, or if I staff you another freelancer. So you need to set yourself and the client a grace period. So it's as hard as it may sound. The more I had such problems, I said, screw it, 2 weeks max. So back then I was like, yeah, let's wait a month, maybe 1.5, no, 2 weeks max. If they don't figure out the start for the project, I said, screw it, can deal with that. Some people will say, yeah, you may burn the client. Yeah, but you don't want to deal with those clients. I don't want to have that clients in the long term. So set a grace period and try to make a backup plan for you and maybe for the client. I told them, you know what, I'm now in a different project, but I know someone as good as me, maybe 5% cheaper. If things may work on the future sometimes, you can have him if I'm not available. So you're still good with the client, and usually they don't care if you do the job, they care if someone skilled does the job. So this can work out.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's a red flag when
Yeah.
it keeps postponed. And usually freelancers are not that people who, like, yes, you have to have this financial buffer. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but anyways, like you're burning money, you're not doing
Yes.
it, and
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 everything is
there is
then.
no guarantee that they will work with you.
That,
So
that reminds me of one story, just between you and me. The very, very, very first time I was a freelancer was during my studies 10 years ago for 1 year. I had only one client and was doing small projects for 2K fixed. That was nice. And then he said, Thomas, come on, you're now finished with your studies. Let's go all in. And he paid me around, I don't know, 10 grand a month, and things were working out. And after 4 months, he was like, can pay you now, but as soon as you finish the app, the client pays me, I can pay you. And I'm like, hey, we're doing business for half a year, no worries, we get this fixed. 1 month later, I was like, you know what? I gotta pay my rent. And he was like, yeah, I know, but the other client and this and that. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this for another month, but please make that happen. And guess what? It became 3 months, and I was like, I really like you, but I need to get my lawyer involved and everything. But let me still work for you to actually get your money and everything. And at the very, very end, half a year later, he owed me around 60, 70K, which was a shit ton of money for me back then. I was nearly bankrupt, and I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I sued him. He disappeared. And also, I told my lawyer, and he hired a detective, and it sounds like a movie. And the detective told me, you know what, Thomas, this guy is in debt for 1.4 million and around 20 people. You will never see your 60, 70K something. This guy just disappeared out of Germany.
wow.
And I was like, damn, that's like a movie. So that was the
Yeah.
lowest point in my life. It sucked so hard. But I said, okay, go back to a permanent position, became an app developer at Mercedes, just get my finances fixed. And I think 3 years later, I became a freelancer again and said, this is not going to happen ever again. I just work for big corporates because they have the money. And I mean, I'm not getting paid up front, but the first time they're not paying on time, 2 weeks later, I cut it off. Yeah, very
And
hard,
it's
very personal story, and it sounds like a movie.
And it sounds like a movie, but if you were really in the movie, you had to train, you had to buy a
Yes.
gun, and you have to go search this person and find them. And and then this person has to be some kind of a king, and you have to find all
Yeah.
this treasure, and then you have become like
What's
fucking rich.
what's kind of interesting is it was like the lowest point of my life, and I mean, we here at Freelance sucks. So let's talk about the real shit.
Yeah.
And it taught me so many valuable things. And now, since I'm the CEO of OneCode, making 3 million a year, it's like it's good that I experienced this in a small circle, with only 70K, and now I'm prepared for the big stuff. So it sucked back then, but it taught me valuable lessons. And I can say it maybe happened for a good thing, as hard as Schmidt sounds.
If your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top 3 things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
Good question. 2 things. I did that when I became a freelancer the second time. I was like, okay, I talked to 20 freelancers. What are your most valuable 1, 2 tips? Point number 1, get a tax lawyer because you don't want to deal with all that shit. I don't care. I hate it. So they do it for me, a couple of €100 a month, done. And the second thing, try to establish a network before you become a freelancer. So take your time. If you're employed, take half a year, build a network, get connections, maybe add me on LinkedIn, I don't care, and get a network of people so that you have some possibilities for a project. There may be the point where you say, now I'm cut, now I'm a freelancer, now I'm working this, but try to get at least 20, 30 contacts that are valuable. This makes your life so much easier because it takes time. And now if you're a freelancer, you're not making money. Now you start building your network. No, do this at least half a year before.
Yeah, I wish to have the sky's the limit, but time is the limit.
Yeah.
So, final question. If you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
I think embracing LinkedIn more. It was like a love-hate relationship in the very beginning. You may hate it, yeah, for sure, but it's the best tool you can use as a freelancer. You can get in touch with everybody, and it makes your life so easy and so connected and can get you contracts. Embrace it, don't hate it.
Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your really, really deep experience, really sucks part. And yeah, thank you very much for having such an open conversation.
Thank you, Yuri.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friends. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.